Hi everyone, welcome back to the official channel for Masterpieces Writing and Editing LLC. I'm Erica and I'm the owner and the head writer and editor. And if you notice something different, it's the camera quality. So I want to give a special shout out to special people who donated during this crazy time. I wasn't even making posts about donations or looking for anything, so it really means a lot that someone thought enough of this small business to help us out, and it is much appreciated. As you can see, it's been invested in better quality and it's going to continue to get better and better. So thank you so much for your support. And without further ado, I'm going to get into today's video. I wanted to talk about something that I myself have struggled with personally, and that's anxiety. And I've never been diagnosed with it. So let me just put that out there. However, anyone can experience it. It doesn't have to be to the extent that it's a disorder or that it is like extremely interrupting your day-to-day life. And especially when you're a business owner and you're a solopreneur, where it's just you and everything is on you, it can be very stressful. And I mentioned this, I believe, in my work from home video about how a lot of the times me being stressed out, being overworked, it would show up in my work, and I suffered as a result. So over time, I've learned some strategies to help me manage it, and even though it still creeps up, it doesn't have the same effect that it had on me years ago, and that's because of these tips and steps that I'm going to share with you. So number one, most importantly, you have to target your anxiety. Figure out what causes it, where is it coming from, and one of the ways that you can do that is by tracking it. So I know a lot of people might be like, oh, that sounds like extra work. But if you pay attention to what triggers it, you'll be able to get ahead of it. So for me personally, it was being presented with a task that I wasn't familiar with and feeling as if, oh, I may not be able to deliver it, or will I be able to deliver on time? Will I lose a client? So before I even accepted a job, I was thinking ahead to the future that there was going to be an issue, there was going to be a problem. And I realized that this came from feeling inadequate, feeling incapable, feeling insecure. And once I was able to pinpoint those feelings, I would be able to stop the anxiety in its tracks, so to speak. So even though it would still appear, I would be able to stop it from getting worse. And as far as physical symptoms, there would be times to where I would just feel the need to cry. I would have the increased heart rate, the racing thoughts, and I would even have body pain that I could not explain. But do not get on Google to figure that out, because you would be near death according to them. But it was really crazy one while, and sometimes like I would not be able to figure out where is all of this coming from. But when I actually stopped and I retraced my steps, because sometimes it may not be anything that's going on that day, it's something that happened prior to, or even something that's coming up. And that's the crazy thing about anxiety. And I saw a post on social media once, and it said that anxiety is your brain telling you that you're in an emergency that isn't even real. And that's what it is, because your fight or flight response kicks into gear and there's no need for it. And that's why you start to feel the way that you feel. So once you have an understanding of that, it's easier for you to target the anxiety and get ahead of it before it gets worse. And one of the ways to make sure that you're continuing to do that and doing it effectively is to expose yourself more. And that's number two. Expose yourself to the situations that make you anxious. And I know for some people that might be scary because we avoid, but avoidance is only going to make it worse. That's why the mere thought of something can send you into a full-blown panic attack. And there's a therapy called exposure therapy. And it works well with people who have phobias. And one of the ways that it works is by helping people to see that the way that they see a situation isn't really that way. It's not as bad as it seems. And in a lot of ways, even if it is negative, what's the worst that can happen? Will you be able to handle the worst? And oftentimes it's just realizing that we have to be okay with the things that we cannot control. And one way to help you manage those thoughts is number three, download apps that are focused on relaxation or meditation. I absolutely love MindShift. MindShift is so amazing. It has so many different exercises for breathing, mindfulness activities. There's even a checklist. So depending on the type of anxiety that you're feeling, you can go through the checklist to figure out, okay, so these are the thoughts I'm having. What's a way that I can figure out how to think about the situation differently? And that's where I get that phrase from, what's the worst that could happen? Because That's how the questions are based. So, okay, so let's just say this does happen. What's the worst that can happen? If the worst does happen, will you be able to handle it? So Mind Shift is amazing for that. The other app that I love is called Abide, and it's a meditation app, but it's based on the Bible. And I'm going to talk about it a little later, but one of the things I like to do in the morning is to read. So after reading, I go into my meditation, and that's with the Abide app. So it's a continuation of what I'm reading because 9 times out of 10, I'm reading a Bible plan. And of course, you can find any app that is related to the things that you're interested in most. But I am telling you, having someone to guide you through it, to help you shift your thinking and your behavior, is life changing. So another tip that I highly recommend is getting and staying active. And I emphasize staying because that's one of the things that I have struggled to do. When I was in grad school, I was doing yoga, I was doing my stretches, but as soon as I graduated, I stopped. And in the years that followed, I definitely could have benefited from continuing with that, which is why I started back doing it in November, December 2019. So I recently started back, but I have seen a drastic change in my thinking, in my behaviors, and it's just something to get me to focus on something other than the outside world, other than work or my responsibilities, and it gets me to focus back on my mind, my body, my spirit, my soul. So you can find whatever form of exercise works best for you, whether it's walking, it's jogging, it's swimming, whatever works for you. And it doesn't even have to be a hard workout. For me, it's really light. Like, I don't even break a sweat. But it's just something to just get me to just reshift my thinking and my focus, and it sets the tone for the day because I like to do it in the mornings. And I know other people might have other peak times to where they're more likely to perform better. So like I said before, just do whatever works for you, but make sure you get active and you stay active. So make sure you keep it up. Make it a part of your routine. So number 5 is another part of my morning routine, and that's making time for myself. So like I mentioned before, like when I review my apps, when I exercise, I also read or write in the mornings as well. Morning is when I really feel the most rejuvenated, the most refreshed. Even though naturally I'm not a morning person, it's just that I program myself to get up in the mornings. And there's just something about the sunlight, and it just rejuvenates me. So I always feel best in the mornings. And like I mentioned when I was talking about the apps, oftentimes I'm reading a Bible plan, but I'm also reading books that are related to work, that are fiction books, that are related to self-help. So I'm always reading something in addition to other things that I'm doing as well. And taking that time for myself, it's just a moment to just not even focus on anything, like to just be in that moment, to be free of any responsibilities, and to just feel what it feels to be at peace, to not feel that stress. And sometimes I do write, not all the time, but sometimes. And I know some people, they actually prefer to write or journal in the mornings, and that is a great way. If you do struggle with waking up with all the thoughts of what you have to do during the day, it's a great way to release all of those thoughts. So one thing to do is to brain dump. So anything that you're thinking, just write it down. Because think about it. If you wake up with a lot of negative thoughts on your mind and there's nowhere for you to put them, they're going to stick with you. So brain dumping or journaling is a great way to just get all those thoughts out and release it so that you can make room for more positive energy. And that leads me to number 6. Create a positive environment. And I know for a fact that I mentioned this in my work from home video. You have to limit distractions. You have to create the environment that is going to make you most productive. So if that means turning off notifications, not answering the phone, putting the phone on silent, or completely turning it off, turning the television off, putting music on in the background, but not so loud so where it's distracting. Whatever it is that's going to center you and put you at peace. Even if you have to pray before you start your day, even if before you do work that you know it's going to stress you out, like if you have to just speak out loud your intentions for the day, if you have to say affirmations, do whatever it is that is going to create that positive environment for you. Because if you don't, that is going to be a breeding ground for anxiety to rise up. So everything that pops up, every email, every message, every phone call, everything that goes wrong is going to stick with you. But when you already have that positive environment, it's hard for that anxiety to permeate the situation. So, last but definitely not least, number 7, and it is plan ahead. And this is also something that I mentioned in my work from home video. You have to know what's coming. I know some of you might be thinking that that's a contradiction because you don't exactly know what's going to come, and that's where the anxiety comes from. However, even though we don't know what's going to happen, if we can plan ahead for anything, we know that we'll be able to handle it, regardless of what that is. So, have some form of a plan. And a great way to do this is to have a planner. Or even if you don't want to have a planner, write it in your calendar. Know what's coming, know what you have to do, know how much time you have to designate to a particular task, or even if it's something that you have to do personally, just have a mental note. Have something to where you can have a picture of it, something that you can go to, something just to remind you of the things that are coming. That way you can be aware of it, because sometimes it's the unexpected things that drop in and that trigger us to be anxious. But if we can always plan but still know anything could happen, we can go into the situation much more positive and much more welcoming to what will happen, because we will have all the tools that we need to make it through. So, just to give you guys a brief recap of everything that we talked about today, here are some ways to tackle your anxiety. Number one, target your anxiety. Number two, expose yourself to the situations that make you anxious. Number three, download meditation or relaxation apps. Number four, get active and stay active. Number five, take time for yourself. Number six, create a positive environment. And number seven, plan ahead. So thanks for sticking with me throughout this video. My goal is to never make the videos too long, but when you have to do multiple takes, it gets longer sometimes when you have to, cut the scenes and edit them to fit together. But, I tried to make it as short as possible. So just tune in for our next video. We're going to start talking about the writing process. So I know that a lot of you have been waiting for that particular video, and I'm going to start a series, but we'll talk more about that next time. And as always, if you guys are interested in working with me, all of my information is in the description box. So feel free to send me a message or go ahead and book ahead, or just browse our website, our Facebook page, if you just want to get a better feel of who we are and what we do. So as always, thanks for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and you share this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.